We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
New world order.
People that worked for John Brennan approached me while I was in my...
The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
A new world order.
A world where the United Nations is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders.
Nevertheless, the United States is in a key position to shape this so that the problem of the Bush presidency will be the emergence of a new international order.
The first decade of the 21st century, that out of what will be seen as the greatest restructuring of the global economy, a new world order was created.
Documenting the crisis of our republic.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Waging war on the New World Order.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
This is Govern America with Darren Weeks and Vicky Davis.
Live from FEMA Regions 5 and 10, this is Govern America. I'm Darren Weeks. Vicky Davis is here as well. It is the 15th of August, 2020, as we once again document the crisis of our republic and all the crazy, whacked-out things that are going on right now. And there's no shortage of nefarious activities deep within the deep state. And we're going to talk about all of this stuff going on. Psychological operations are in full force today, and nobody knows that better than Millie Weaver right now, as she was arrested yesterday. In case anyone on the internet hasn't been paying attention, I can't imagine anybody on the internet that isn't aware of this, because for one thing, it was trending on Twitter all day yesterday, and it was a huge news in Patriot circles. Good morning, Vicky.
Good morning.
Yeah. This is a big story that just broke yesterday as she was arrested and hauled away. It just, I don't know, it just has a feeling to it, to me, that, we've talked a lot about, someday the possibility that they would be rounding up the Patriots. And it seems that this has started. Of course, naturally, the big targets are going to be the ones that they're going to pick first, because they have to make an example out of somebody. And especially with the kind of work that she's been doing. I haven't always agreed with everything Millie Weaver has said, but I do know that she has done some excellent work, and certainly this documentary that she was releasing yesterday is monumental, in my estimation.
Oh, I agree. And I considered several possibilities as to why they might have arrested her. The charge that they gave, burglary, doesn't make any sense at all.
It's ridiculous, and nobody believes it. Nobody believes it. I wish I had taken the time, or had the time, to clip the part about Seidel. But let me just start at the beginning here. If anyone hasn't been paying attention, Millie Weaver is an Infowars contributor. She's not an employee there anymore, I don't believe. I think she used to be, but now she's went out on her own. She, I guess, lives in Ohio, and with her husband, Gavin Wince. And both of them, Millie has continued to contribute to Infowars, but she is doing her own thing now called millennial-millie. And she's been putting out some information about various things, including Antifa. I got some of her Antifa stuff here that I've been holding on to for a while. We just haven't got to it with all the stuff, other stuff that's been happening. But both her and her husband were arrested yesterday, just as they were about to put out a documentary about the deep state program, and network called ShadowNet. The name of the documentary was Shadowgate. Or is Shadowgate, because it was somebody went ahead and released the documentary. So I would recommend to everybody, including myself, I downloaded a copy here. Get it while you can. I will put a link in the show notes, and wherever I find additional backup copies online, I will link to that as well, because obviously they want this suppressed, Vicky.
Yeah, definitely.
It's very obvious to me.
But, okay, now here's something interesting, though. The person who released the video, she had a copy of it. Her name is Tori, and she has a video channel, a YouTube channel called Tori Says.
Right.
And the spelling on that is T-O-R-E, Tori Says.
And I don't even know if that's her real name. That's what she's going by.
I don't know either, but she says that she worked for Brennan, for John Brennan, in psychological operations. But she worked outside of the country, and as I understand it, she came back in the country and saw that they were doing it here. I may not have that exactly correct, but that's approximately.
My understanding was it was started in Afghanistan, didn't it? I mean, well, at least for the one part, because what it was is I guess they were trying to influence elections over there or something.
Yes.
Which is, I've often laughed at the notion.
Was Afghanistan or Iraq? I can't remember which.
It might have been Iraq. Yeah, you might be right. Anyway, I've often laughed at the notion that we can foment honest elections over there when we can't even really have honest elections here. And obviously this is more true today than it has been ever before, because all the finger pointing at the Russians. Oh, the Russians are meddling. The Russians. And it was the very people that were pointing the finger at the Russians the whole time. And we've told you this all along. But obviously, we've never been proven correct more now than ever before, because it's very clear from this documentary, it's very clear from everything we're seeing to materialize that is absolutely the case. That is the intelligence establishment and the intelligence contractors working with them, the deep state, ladies and gentlemen, that are pointing the finger at the Russians, while they are the ones that are screwing with the election. They are the ones that are trying to mess everything up in their favor.
Right. And the reason why contractors are so important to the story is because when they decided to go with the complete digitalization of our society, the information society, initially, it was the United States. We thought it was the United States only, but it turns out that it is a global information society with primarily the Western countries, but not entirely. It's, how the military does coalitions of the willing to go beat the crap out of some country or the other. Well, there are, as part of that dynamic, there are also coalitions of the corporate world.
Yeah.
Who are willing to go in and fund digitization, I guess you would say, or automation of some aspect or other of a country's business.
Yeah.
But the idea of the open society is the open digital society. Okay? The only thing they left out of there was digital. It's open digital society, and it is the global totalitarian system built by technocrats.
Yeah, and the Antifa stuff that we've been talking about, and everybody's been talking about, because it's hard not to talk about it since it's so in your face and everywhere, and the Black Lives Matter too, all of that really fits into this whole technocratic system that they're building. Because as this documentary points out, and it makes all the sense in the world, who are they wanting to replace the police with? Now, we've talked about the social worker aspect of it all, but there is a whole another area which deals with robotics and technology. I mean, they're literally planning on enforcing things with computer algorithms and surveillance devices to the point where they think that they can control all crime, like criminals are really going to respect all of this stuff somehow magically. But in a technocrat's mind, they think they can fix everything with computers and computer code.
Well, the concept, the very, very important concept that has been driving it all is prevention.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Prevention of crime, pre-crime, prevention of environmental damage, prevention of illness. Everything is based on prevention. Whereas, in the world before this whole global society, we wait until something happens. When something happens, then we deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
But in their new world order, it's all about prevention. Yeah. Okay, now in the video, Tori and Millie were wondering, why is all this data in Germany? Why is it in Germany? Well, it was Germany that started down this path of beginning first with the automated highway systems. As I was researching ports and corridors and things in our country, I discovered the 10T network and the development of systems for highway automation in Germany. And it was a project called, it's a Greek word. I'll look it up in a second. But anyway, it was Germany that was working on the highway automation, and Japan was working on robotics.
Wow.
Okay. So here, going back to World War II, what side were Germany and Japan on?
Right.
Okay. So, maybe they signed an armistice or whatever for World War II, but everything that's happening today is a continuation of that.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and play the arrest of Millie. This is Millie and her husband being arrested yesterday. You're going to hear her on the video here talking about, and her complete dumbfoundment that this law enforcement officer, and I'll just say apparent law enforcement officer. I'm not even sure if these people are really legitimate law enforcement officers, to be honest with you. I mean, nothing they did. Somebody said there wasn't even a warrant. I don't even know how you can, if they were really arrested, there should be, and I'm not trying to start a new conspiracy theory, but if they were really arrested, there should be some kind of paperwork somewhere. And the claims, people have pointed out online, the claims that there was a grand jury investigation for burglary seems a little weird. Certainly burglary is not a felonious crime.
Well, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Burglary is a felony.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess you're right. Anyway, this is Millie.
Break.
You're saying a grand jury indicted me? For what?
We're going to have 221s out here. We have room to transport one. Can you send us a car, please? Okay. I will give you all your paperwork when we get to the jail. Right now, I need you to get some shoes.
Okay.
Because we need to get moving.
Okay.
We need to get this thing care of.
Well, this time you're not getting everybody.
Okay.
Now.
Guys, I don't know what's happening right now. The police have just showed up at my house, and they said that they're arresting me. They said that a grand jury indicted me for something. I have no idea what. This is crazy. Where's my shoe? I have one shoe here. Okay.
And one shoe there.
Okay.
So we're good.
So why wasn't I given anything in the mail? Like, I have no idea what this is talking about.
Yeah, Billy.
Guys, I'm literally about to break huge breaking news right now, and I'm being arrested, and I have no idea
why. Do you know anything about this case?
We're being charged with burglary.
Burglary?
Yeah.
For what?
They can't say. They won't say.
They're not even saying. They're saying
Okay.
we're being charged.
Okay. Now, is this from the grand jury or are these green sheets?
Grand jury?
Are these green sheets or are they is this an indictment? Okay, very good. Okay.
Calm down. This is my son right now.
All right.
Buddy.
Come on, let's go. To the car. I've been more than nice. To the car.
I don't understand what's happening right now. Like, please share this.
Okay, so there was a cut there in the original video. I don't know what all they cut out, but the point is that before she said please share this. Yeah, that was the arrest. Very disturbing seeing people hauled away that you have been watching on the internet and there's no way she committed burglary. I mean, nobody believes this. But this is obviously a way of shutting her up or twisting her arm in some way. I know you got a theory about it, and it's
I looked
very
up
plausible.
burglary because I was thinking that, maybe they modified the law. Burglary normally applies to real property or personal property, if you break into someone's car and steal stuff or something. But I was thinking that perhaps they extended the definition of burglary to include intellectual property. But if they did, it's not on the law library or the U.S. Code library that I reference. So
yeah, and I'm not a legal expert, by the way. But in my defense, I think that the degree to which you burglarize something, it can be a felony. It doesn't necessarily have to be. So it's probably the amount of the burglary, what you burglarize, and that sort of thing. So,
well, yeah, that's possible.
Felonious.
But I mean, it's an arrestable offense, right?
Certainly, absolutely.
Whether they want to call it first degree or second degree or, whatever.
Yeah, this is so far out of left field. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, the document. Go ahead.
As I went through the possibilities in my mind, I was also watching the video, and there's one place in the video where Millie says that she met with a whistleblower from a company called Skytel. That's SCYTL. Mm-hmm. So what occurred to me is that they may be arresting Millie to get her in jail so that they can use that as leverage to get the name of the whistleblower. Because as it turns out, I looked at Skytel, and that's a very important company.
Yeah.
Has to do with election systems.
Yeah, and that is absolutely the third rail. I mean, the election systems and certainly the Ukraine stuff. I'm trying to find that spot. Did you say that was 59 minutes into the video?
If you start at 58.
Okay,
and
58.
let it play for a couple minutes, it'll go. You'll get it.
Okay. All right. Let me we'll pick it up right here.
Games in the swamp are played.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, he knows how they operate.
It was actually framed by people that he worked with. I mean, that software was created, by his friend that created the Magic Wheel software, implemented ShadowNet for the courts so they can, randomly have such specified, out of millions of people that were in the pool, they were all, intelligence contractors and never Trumpers. Come on.
So why wouldn't they just focus their efforts on running IA operations to get Hillary in office?
Oh, they did. Are you kidding? They deployed everything from censoring, shadow banning, to dismissals, to full-blown mockingbirds. I mean, that's where we saw the real face of the press. That is exactly where we saw it. You know,
I want all of you to know that that's true not only for...
Okay, you have to know what. Let me.
Did you use the clip that I sent to you? Because the 58 minutes was to a particular video.
This is the actual documentary.
Oh, okay. Well, then the time is off, because I got that from Pete Santilli's.
Yeah, I don't have
video.
That. I don't have Pete Santilli's
Yes,
video.
you do. I sent you the link.
Well, I have it in the email, but I don't have it physically downloaded, is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. All right. Well. Anyway, she talks about this company, maybe I could play it. I don't know.
Okay. Well.
Okay. I did find the name of the German company that was working on the road informatics, and it was called Prometheus. And I'll let you ponder Prometheus as I look for this video.
I'll tell you what, let me just give a little background here. What they were working on, as I said, it's called Shadowgate. It's an expose of the intelligence establishment's ShadowNet program, which was apparently spearheaded by General James Jones, according to Patrick-Bergy. He's one of the whistleblowers in the documentary. The second whistleblower, as Vicky mentioned, she's going by the name of Tori. She was an intelligence contractor, and together they describe the network web that sucks up everyone's data and uses it to perform psychological operations against them. And when I say everyone, I'm talking about everybody in the country. They're talking about how these people connect this stuff to the internet backbone and basically suck everything up. Now, we know the NSA is doing that, but they forked it. They forked all the information that's going through the internet backbones, and they are collecting it with into the coffers of the private corporations. And that's what they're talking about here, including so they use it for the psychological operations, including the manipulation of people for purposes of elections and electoral manipulation. The very thing that they were accusing the Russians of doing, as I said, they were doing it all the time. And here's the proof. It's laid bare by these courageous whistleblowers, the two of them that came forward, and, of course, real journalists like Millie Weaver and her husband Gavin Wince, who have now been kidnapped by uniformed men for their efforts. I got the... let me just go ahead and play. This is the Shadowgate trailer.
People that worked for John Brennan approached me while I was in my specialist training in the Navy.
I worked for Obama's National Security Advisor, General James Jones, and for about 8 years for the development of social media psychological warfare.
We're talking about military-grade psychological warfare weapons being used on American citizens.
Paid for by American taxpayers.
I was a contractor for various intelligence agencies. Our intelligence doesn't stay within our borders or within federal buildings.
Force Psychological Operations Group had no idea that we were going to be taking their years' worth of work that they paid us to do, and we kept the intellectual property rights to it and remarketed it, branded it commercially as the ShadowNet.
It pries into your demographic, your world. So if I want to blackmail you and put you under my thumb, not only will I know everything, I will know people I can get in contact to find out more about you. I had full access to communications between the former GCHQ director, Hannigan, Adam Schiff, Daniel Jones, Brennan, General Jones, and many, many more.
You may know where the Hillary Clinton emails are.
Would you want to see me in Leavenworth? Which I don't, by the way, so nobody raid me.
What basically you've heard just being described for the last 3 or 4 years with fake news and the fake news journalists, fake stories, fake dossier, all these things are attributes and characteristics of psychological warfare.
What did you name it ISI for?
I like the iPhone, Psi for psychological warfare.
Okay.
These operations aren't like just small things. They have to coordinate and organize all of these things. They have to coordinate with the assets they have in the media. And they have have to do all of this without any attribution to themselves.
Okay, so that's the trailer of the movie. I believe I found the place in the video that you're talking about, Vicky. So This is from, because Pete Santilli played it during his show, I guess, and so hopefully this is the spot Vicky's talking about, where they talk about this company.
To their assets throughout these news organizations, utilizing an application like the ShadowNet. Jillian Turner has a direct connection to Atlantic Council. General Jones was the chairman of the board of the Atlantic Council. JGI, Jones Group International, is an oil lobby. Atlantic Council and Burisma has a relationship. Burisma is an energy company. Obviously, they have these connections.
This would explain why Fox News focuses mostly on the Biden-Ukraine scandal, never mentioning Jones's connections, nor the Atlantic Council. Trump focusing on Ukraine isn't just about Biden. It's about Jones, Hayden, Brennan, McChrystal, the State Department, USAID, and corrupt inspector generals. With everything in place, and after being in control of the office of the presidency for decades, the military-industrial complex had confidence they could take Trump out as a candidate or even as president. Has IIA been used against President Trump?
Absolutely. Through the Russian dossier. There are so many people, former colleagues of mine, directly connected to the ShadowNet. John McCain and Lindsey Graham, one of the last two people to have their hands on the Russian dossier before it was handed off to BuzzFeed as part of the dissemination process.
I told the president it was not John McCain. I know because John McCain showed me the dossier.
It was built, it was a product, it was used as a weapon as part of an influence operation. It was fake information put into it to help create chaos and to influence an election. Bottom line, right? But those people that were directly involved with that were also directly involved with the ShadowNet.
So you have knowledge of them using military-grade psychological warfare weapons on the President of the United States.
Done by the closest people around him, too.
As Trump's election unfolded and as all of the Russia collusion and all these things started happening and becoming exposed, revealed to me it was to keep from exposing the stuff that they've been doing over here, which I believe includes the Maidan massacre in Ukraine.
Where did the dossier come from? Nellie Orr testified it came from the Ukraine. Where's all the money laundering and crazy IIAs we see going on in Ukraine?
So Manafort's being accused of social media influence operations in Ukraine in 2010. World courts charged him with that.
Ukraine was the epicenter of everything. Like everything. And that's because we had maimed that nation and made them deal to us. Barack Hussein Obama did it. You know, we deployed troops, National Guard, of course. And what states are the ones that work with Ukraine? It would be California and New York. So we deployed troops there because, you know, they weren't listening. It's like, why would you want to stay independent and hang out with the Russians when you can be with us, the Americans and the Europeans? And they were really upset that they weren't willing to commit to receive debt from the EU and ignore Russia, which they had been attached to for eons. So we went in there and destroyed them. That's how Hunter Biden got his job. That's how we weaseled our way in there. We got a hold of corrupt people. We said, we'll help you out with your lawsuits. You get us in there. We wrote bills. We sent them money so we can help them conduct elections. We did everything there.
Okay, I don't know if this is... Are we
okay, it was just getting there. It was just getting there.
I can continue playing. Well, one thing I want to insert real quick is she went off Nellie Orr's testimony about where the dossier came from. That you can't go on Nellie Orr's testimony because Nellie Orr is a part of the whole problem.
That's true.
It came from... The dossier really came from the Shearer brothers, who have very close connection to Strobe Talbot, who has very close connections to the Clintons. So I just wanted to point that out. You can't rely upon Nellie Orr to find out where the dossier came from.
The Obama aid package in Ukraine, which corresponds with Joe Biden's billion-dollar loan guarantee scandal, is the same aid package where Seidel got a field office in Kiev to provide election training and election management for the Ukrainian Election Commission.
Okay, this is where you're getting into Seidel right now.
Seidel is one of the most notorious outsourced companies for elections, with regular electronic voting machine problems, who also tabulate our election results in cloud services in Europe, aka servers outside the United States. A whistleblower leaked to me in 2019 internal documents from Seidel that appeared to show meddling in the Kentucky election.
Atlantic Council has been citing America's policies for decades now. And look at what a panic they were in when Trump made that phone call to Ukraine. They went into absolute panic mode. 75% of the people testifying were all directly connected to General Jones, McCain, and Atlantic Council.
The now IG of the NSA, literally with his wife, created the National Anti-Corruption Bureau in the Ukraine in 2009. They created it.
Robert Storch is the deputy head of the U.S. Inspector General's office.
Це пан Storch. По скайпу є зв'язок у нас?
I recognize how important this task is for NABU and for the effort to address...
That's the head of NABU talking, or the guy that helped establish it.
...corruption there in Ukraine.
Name is Rob Storch.
September 30th, 2016. Obama knows that within 30 days, if the NSA can't fix the overcollection problem by either dumping data or justifying having it, the FISA court will order the IG of the NSA to investigate. So what does Obama do? He writes an executive order that makes the IG of the NSA a presidential appointment rather than an appointment by the director of the NSA. November 30th, 2016. Obama nominates Robert Storch, who is working as deputy IG of the DOJ under Horowitz at the same time.
I'm Rob Storch, and I'm honored to serve as the Inspector General at the National Security Agency.
During the transition period from the Obama administration into the Trump administration, Storch appears to never have actually been confirmed by the Trump administration.
How did this guy get confirmed? Not one person asked, hey, have you ever worked for... I mean, a couple months before they even had the hearing to see if he's going to be confirmed or not, nobody asked him, hey, did you by any chance get an offer from the president of Ukraine to work for them? It was all over the media, but not one person asked. You know who else helped them set it up? Bill Taylor and George Kent, those two clowns, also testified against the president. One of them has supersonic hearing. They could hear phones that are not on speakerphone from across the room. So
that's odd. According to Tory, the alleged impeachment whistleblower was actually a wiretap, hence supersonic hearing capabilities. Eric Ciaramella was a decoy to hide the fact that the president was being wiretapped through a 702 data overcollection problem connected to the Sunset Clause.
Okay, I don't know how much more of this we want to play.
No,
but that Eric Ciaramella
just
information.
Just through Skytel, because this whole thing, remember, the whole thing started in our country with the Russians allegedly hacking the elections, right? And it evolved into, well, no, they didn't actually hack it. They hacked our minds. And then it was the Facebook and
the ads,
trolls,
yes.
supposedly, and setting up events, buying ads and so forth. But it evolved from there. Well, this is where it kind of dovetails in with my research. And I just recently, like yesterday, posted a link to an article about the Global Information Society, and I called it Anarchy in Government, because the G7 countries agreed to create a worldwide network with 11 collaborative pilot projects. Okay, now when they started to do that, when they began doing that, it began in 1990 with the G7 meeting that was held in Houston, Texas, and they, I'm just going to read a little bit of this. We, the leaders of the 7 countries and representatives of the European community, blah, 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 get down to we intend should be a decade, they're talking about the next decade, should be a decade of democracy. We reiterate our commitment to support the strengthening of democracy, human rights, economic reconstruction, and development through market-oriented economies. The next paragraph down talks about the London Declaration. Okay, we welcome enthusiastically the profound and historic changes sweeping through the continent. The London Declaration on a transformed North Atlantic Alliance provides a new basis for cooperation. Okay, so I went out and found the London Declaration, and the London Declaration was by NATO countries. Item 21 of the London Declaration says the Conference on Security and Cooperation in Europe, the CSCE, should become more prominent in Europe's future, bringing together the countries of Europe and North America. And it goes down a little bit, and it says, let's see, they would set new standards for the establishment and preservation of free societies. It should include inter alia CSCE principles on the right and to free and fair elections. Okay, so this is a NATO initiative through the CSCE. Mm-hmm. The second one is CSCE commitments to respect and uphold the rule of law. The CSCE guidelines for enhancing economic cooperation based on the development of free and competitive market economies, and CSCE cooperation on environmental protection. Okay, so the free and fair elections. Now, over the years, we've heard that researched and seen the what are called color revolutions in the various countries in what used to be the Warsaw Pact countries. So with this agreement, 1990, remember the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, and 1990 was the year of the reunification of Germany. Mm-hmm. And that's the year at which they decided to do all of these things. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that George Soros is actually working for the CSCE and or NATO in assisting in these color revolutions.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. I don't doubt that at all. I don't think anybody in this audience would if they're paying attention or have been for any length of time. And
so you've got the open society for the open global information society, which is actually a kind of a merger of the governments at the administrative levels of government. They did all of this behind the curtain of national security in our country.
Yeah, so they're building the New World Order is what you're saying here.
Right. And
this is what the New World Order looks like.
As I see it, when our government decided to do this under the George Herbert Walker Bush administration, it started there, and then when Clinton picked it up and actually did it, they made the decisions on the collaborative systems of government at the Brussels Ministerial Summit in 1995. What they actually did, they were severing their relations with the American people. Our government severed its relations with the American people, and our administrative layer of government went with the global systems, which is why they seem to be an alien and foreign government, and why they're doing all of these unconstitutional things, and why the government contracts with NGOs and private corporations to do all of these things that they couldn't do under a constitutional government, because they have to keep up the facade that we are still the United States government, as it was, when we are in fact not.
Yeah, very well said. It's a web, a technocratic web that they have woven, and it certainly is the question is, how do we get out of it? Is there any way out of it? I don't see any solutions here. That's the problem, and that's very unsatisfying.
Well, there's no solutions for us,
except for exposing
the solutions have to come from the Congress and from
good luck with that.
New people in the security, in the national security and has to be like a brand new layer of government, actual American government, clearing out this whole rotten core that has collaborated and colluded in these global information systems.
Is the best we can hope for a benevolent coup at this point?
Well, it'd be a re-coup, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
Recouping our government
there's no question.
from the people who captured it.
There's no question that this has been a very sophisticated coup. And the American people,
brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and this whole idea of psychological operations and taking what people put on Facebook, what they put on social media, what they put on the internet at large, but especially the so-called social networks, and using that data against them in terms of, just to know what makes a person tick, what makes them crazy, what makes them go berserk.
That's only one part of it. I mean, that's just one. The psychological operations are one part of it.
Well, it is huge.
To manipulate the voters, but they only reach the voters that are online. There's a whole lot of people that are really not online. But we're talking about other systems, our education system, our healthcare system. They are implementing a third world healthcare system in this country. They've destroyed our healthcare system, and now they are implementing a third world system where we will have clinics and telemedicine, and you won't get to see a doctor hardly. You'll get to see physician's assistants and nurse practitioners, and they want to manage your health care. They want you to have a health care home, so you have some snot-nosed 20-year-old routing you to different doctors for whatever your problems are. But it's the whole ball of wax. It is the whole critical infrastructure of the United States that's involved. It's not just social media. That's just one piece of it.
And in the meantime, they're rounding people up. They're rounding people up that might be a threat.
I know. I have to say, every time there's a knock at my door, I jump out of my chair.
Yeah, because you never know when that knock might happen, or that they might actually knock the door in. And it's insidious to think about, but it's really not so insidious when it's already happening, and they are going to go after the people that are the tip of the spear. First, the people who have the largest audiences, the people who are, and despite what you may think of Infowars, there are people that work there that do a great job. Melissa Dykes, Aaron and Melissa Dykes came out of Infowars. They were working there at one time, and they've done some excellent work. And so, I mean, there's one thing I've learned since I've been doing this broadcast and since I've been in the so-called in the movement for so many years, paying attention, is that a lot of times things aren't so cut and dried. Everything isn't always so it's either this or it's that. A lot of times there's a lot of place in between. There are good people that do bad things, and there are bad people that do good things, and there are people that do, kind of like waver in between. And, everything isn't, you can't always just necessarily nail things down like you would. I mean, I guess it's human nature. We kind of like things in a nice, tidy package where we can just, okay, that is that, and that's the way it always is, and that's the way it, but you can't look at it like that. Am I making any sense?
Oh yeah, perfect sense to me. I mean, I probably understand it more than most because I understand that everything that they're doing has to do with the implementation of systems. And when you are talking about a population base like the United States with 50 states and different time frames of doing things, and a lot of it is covert, meaning that there's a difference between the story that they're telling you and why they're actually doing something. It makes more sense to me probably because I understand what the problems are with implementing big systems like this. Mm-hmm. And how you have to bridge between where you are at the moment and where you need to go. And so not everything is perfect, and you're creating chaos in the meantime. It's not really chaos if you understand what it is that they're actually doing. Yeah. Yeah, it makes there's an organization behind it. Yeah. And if there's chaos, strategic plan. If there's chaos, they want it to look like there's chaos because it's engineered chaos, just like the Antifa things. The Black Lives Matter and Antifa rioting, that looks pretty much like need to everyone. But there is an organization behind it. And that's what people need to understand. And what you said at the beginning about the police and preventative policing and robotics and all of that, if you understand that's where these psychopathic technocrats are trying to take us with, robotic police and prevention, pre-crime, then you can see why, they want to take away money from the police so that they can have the money to implement technology. Right. Absolutely. Because all of these IT systems, the most insane thing of all is like global health, where they are implementing high-tech systems in countries that are still tribal, basically. And how much money is that costing, and where is the benefit? What is the benefit to doing that? There is no normal evolution of society. They are trying to drop the 21st century into the desert, the early 20th century. Yeah. Yeah. This is I have one more clip to play with respect to the at least I think it's just with respect to the whole Millie Weaver and Gavin Wince arrests. And this is Patrick-Bergy. He is the male whistleblower in the documentary, and this is his reaction yesterday when he was actually on the phone with Gavin when he was arrested. And at the time he did this emergency recording, he didn't know that Millie had been arrested too. So that becomes apparent in what he says here.
All right, folks, we got a big problem here.
Gavin Wince, the person, millennial-millie's husband, was just arrested. I was talking to him on the phone when he was arrested. I'm pretty sure they're probably going to come for me, although I've done nothing wrong and said nothing classified, just talked about commercially available products and tools. They were just getting ready to release it, and the cops happened to show up. They said, I tried recording it as soon as I saw what was going on, but the screen capture wouldn't record the phone call itself. So I got a couple minutes of, I listened to everything that happened. Apparently it's for like burglary that they're looking at him for, which is ridiculous. They are literally just getting ready to release one of the most damning documents of showing Obama's national security advisor in cahoots and releasing the Shadowgate documentary, and he was just arrested for no reason. Millennial-millie's there, his kids are there. I believe the documentary is going to be pushed out here immediately.
So he's clearly worried, and I think he has every reason to be. And also that the Tory, the woman that goes by the name of Tory, the intelligence contractor, I'm sure she's terrified too. Because these people, justice doesn't matter to them. And that's the whole thing. I mean, they look what they've done to Edward-Snowden, who Trump is now talking about. Well, he's not talking about, he's making, dropping little hints that he might pardon him. At least that's what you can get from some of the comments about how he says that a lot of people believe that Edward Snowden has been treated unfairly. And he made that comment recently, so that a lot of people are getting from that the impression that he might be considering a pardon for Snowden. And then, of course, obviously the name Julian Assange comes to mind. What's been done to him, this whole thing with Millie Weaver reminds me a lot of, what's been done to Julian Assange. This is what happens. This is how you can tell whether or not you have a real journalist, ladies and gentlemen. Real journalists are not treated well, including in the United States. This is the kind of thing that in the past we've kind of connected with other third world countries, crackpot dictatorships, how they treat journalists. They arrest journalists, they assassinate journalists, they persecute journalists. And now we have that here in the United States. Incidentally, one other thing that Patrick-Bergy had said, and it wasn't in that video, but it was in another one that I found on his YouTube channel. He pointed out the U.S. Army has put out an article, 91st Cyber Brigade completes rollout of ShadowNet Enterprise solution. I sent you this link, Vicky. He was a little unclear as to whether or not this was the same ShadowNet, but he said the name ShadowNet has been trademarked. So if it's not the same ShadowNet, then certainly the government is in violation of the of trademark law. So more than likely it's the same ShadowNet, and they're rolling it out. Go ahead. You were going to say something?
Well, I looked at it, and it looks like they're training cyber soldiers. So I can see it being the same system, because part of cyber warfare is, of course, psychological operations.
Right.
And they started down this path. Well, I already told you the time they started with the G7, but in terms of the military, there was an admiral called Admiral Art Zabrowski, and they called him the father of net-centric warfare. And so once they opened up the internet, the military started looking at it and in terms of future war. What is future war going to look like with the internet? And Admiral Art Zabrowski was one of the people that was looking at that and trying to figure out how the military was going to change. Because obviously the military was structured for World War II. You know, tanks, big army, big bombs and things. But if you open up the world, open up borders, get rid of borders, then warfare moves to your domestic territory, to civilian turf.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I guess so. We'll leave it there for now. We've got the break coming up. But, there's one other thing I want to say, since it does kind of dovetail pretty well with what we're saying. We're talking about all this election fraud and everything that and then the generalized fraud going on and connecting to the Clintons, too. We got this breaking news yesterday. Also, appeals court rules Hillary Clinton does not have to testify on emails and Benghazi attack records. This was stemming from a Judicial Watch lawsuit, which an earlier court had ruled that she did have to testify. Now there's an appeals court that is now saying that she doesn't. So big surprise, as the people in the court system are protecting her as well. And where's the Justice Department on this? Why are they on the side of the Clintons? That's the question.
Because all this national... We better go to break, and then we can continue on the other side.
All right, folks, hour number 2 of Govern America is straight ahead. Don't go away.
Before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
New world order. New world order.
This is a moment to seize. The kaleidoscope has been shaken. The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
A new world order.
A world where the United Nations is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders.
Nevertheless, the United States is in a key position to shape this so that the problem of the Bush presidency will be the emergence of a new international order.
The first decade of the 21st century, that out of what will be seen as the greatest restructuring of the global economy, a new world order was created.
Documenting the crisis of our republic.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Waging war on the New World Order.
The councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
This is Govern America with Darren Weeks and Vicky Davis.
Live from FEMA Regions 5 and 10, this is the second hour of Govern America. I'm Darren Weeks, and Vicky Davis is here as well. It continues to be the 15th of August, 2020, as we get right back into the show here. The website for the show is governamerica.com. That's governamerica.com. My email address is radio@governamerica.com. And, Vicky, you want to go ahead and give your information out?
My website is called thetechnocratictyranny.com. And my email address is eyeswideoopen@channelingreality.com, which is also the name of my older website, channelingreality.com.
Yeah, and I'm happy to say we finally got the internet fixed, as people must have noticed. We haven't really talked a lot about that. Didn't want to really waste any time on it, but thankfully we had a gentleman come out this week and do some work for us and found some oxidation on the wires in a box that sticks out of the ground. So after doing all kinds of work here, and wasting a bunch of time because I tried to tell him it's not with my stuff, but no. But that's okay. He finally did find the problem and fixed it, so we're happy. And I do have a backup system that I have purchased, and it is sitting here in a box, and at some point I'm going to work on installing that as well, so hopefully we can get these problems, even if we do have problems with one system, eventually we're going to be able to, hopefully, if everything works right, switch over to another. So, we're working on things and trying to get things moving. Anyway, from the week, just yesterday, they reported the United States Postal Service has warned that in Pennsylvania, which is one of the swing states they consider a swing state, some mail-in ballots may not be delivered in time to be counted this November. In a July letter to Pennsylvania State Secretary Kathy Boockvar, United States Postal Service General Counsel Thomas Marshall described the risk that ballots requested near the deadline under state law will not be returned by mail in time to be counted under your laws as we understand them. And that was reported by NBC News. The USPS also described Pennsylvania's current deadlines as incongruous with the Postal Service's delivery standards, according to Axios. Voters in the swing state can request a mail-in ballot up to October 27th, and they have to be received by 8 p.m. on Election Day, according to The Hill. Anyway, this is the problem with going along with mail-in ballots, and we've been warning people about this a long time. Of course, the president has been warning people about this. It's not a good system, and I believe with all my heart this is yet another excuse, another way to rig the upcoming election. And people think that elections don't matter, and to a certain extent they don't, because, whoever gets in office, for the most part, the plan does seem to move forward. However, there is a real contest going on, and certainly these intelligence agencies and deep state behind the scenes, they do seem to go to an awful lot of trouble to rig them. So they must matter to a certain extent.
Well, I think they are intentionally creating a cluster mess-up because then it will make it more attractive to go to a national database of voter registration, ultimately heading towards a system of internet voting.
Yes. Imagine the United Nations controlling your elections.
All of these systems, they all interface at different points. Okay, and so the whole COVID thing, of course, they're ultimately going to make people have to have a ID card that will say whether or not you are COVID safe. And COVID safe means that they have a unique ID for your e-medical record and for e-voting, for e-everything. It's a unique ID, but you will not be able to travel unless you have that card. Mm-hmm. And so, and that will also be ultimately the voter registration. If you have that card, they know all about you, no matter where you are, because it's a unique ID.
Yeah, we got a lot of information.
All of these dialectics all push us in a direction where this deep state technocratic system wants to go.
Yep, electronic passports, they're certainly coming, and this COVID-19 stuff is not going away, because they found another way of controlling the population and implementing all of the control mechanisms electronically. All this electronic stuff.
What they're doing, they're terrorizing the population. The United States has laws against terrorism. And so, that's just, we always think we don't have any solutions, but they are terrorizing the population.
Yeah, absolutely. Since we were talking about Millie Weaver, I had some information that she did, which could have well led to the information she did, the research she's been doing on the ShadowNet. She did some stuff. She did a deep dive into the Minneapolis riots and how they were pre-planned and who helped to plan them. And she focused on the surprise movement. In this clip, you're going to hear Abby Leedy, an actress from Queer Eye, and she is also a Sunrise Movement organizer. So I just thought, since we were on the topic, this is something I've been holding on to for a number of weeks, and because the Antifa / Black Lives Matter stuff is still ongoing. I mean, I just was reading yesterday that they are looking at, I don't know if it's yesterday or the day before, but just in the last 2 or 3 days, they're looking at setting up another Chaz-like area where they're planning on taking control of near a courthouse. So this is still something that's very much in play right now.
We are going to show you how the Sunrise Movement played an instrumental role in carrying out mayhem in the name of bringing about the Green New Deal. We have sources within these groups to get to the bottom of where all of this leftist radicalization is coming from and what their end game is.
And any politician must back a Green New Deal or make way for the leadership who will.
We have their plans, manuals, intercepted communications, and have recordings of their Zoom chats. The reason why the screens of these people in the Zoom are blurred is because they are minors. What we didn't expect to find were organizers radicalizing middle school and high school aged children, teaching them military tactics and preparation for high-risk actions. Some of these tactics include escalation provocation techniques, blocking freeway traffic, and how to get arrested, bogging down law enforcement in the name of destroying capitalism to make way for their Green New Deal.
Why be in school if we're not going to have a future?
What some parents may have thought were innocent youth organizations, genuinely fostered and ran by children, are actually monolithic structures with private intelligence military contractors and foreign interests influencing children to carry out their subversive objectives.
Everybody get arrested. Come down.
Behind the Sunrise Movement is an organization called Momentum.
Just some quick things to keep in mind is that when we escalate, our target is always the public. So even if we're targeting a senator or another decision maker, escalation should be a response, not a reaction to what's going on. And I think again, just what that means is your escalation should be deeply grounded in your movement's DNA. It should be deeply grounded in your strategy, not just a knee-jerk sort of bottlenecked reaction.
Instead of studying in a classroom, we're building an army of young people across the country starting right now. So we'll be thousands strong by the time the election arrives.
They are calling on children to help escalate the mayhem.
These escalations, these actions can be really, really dangerous for a lot of folks. There's a lot of, especially I think with escalated actions, often police are involved, or there's there could be nasty onlookers, or you're doing an action in DC and there's a bunch of really evil MAGA teens over in the corner.
Evil MAGA teens around the corner. That was Abby Leedy, the actress and Sunrise Movement organizer. And I just have to remind people of Agenda 21, Chapter 21. No, I'm sorry, it's Chapter 25, Children and Youth in Sustainable Development. Because This is this thing that the United Nations called for. They say it is imperative that youth from all parts of the world participate actively in all relevant levels of decision-making processes because it affects their lives today and has implications for their futures. In addition to their intellectual contribution and their ability to mobilize support, they bring unique perspectives that need to be taken into account. numerous actions and recommendations within the international community have been proposed to ensure that youth are provided a secure and healthy future, including an environment of quality, improved standards of living, and access to education and employment. These issues need to be addressed in development planning. Each country should, in consultation with its youth communities, establish a process to promote dialogue between the youth community and government at all levels, and to establish mechanisms that permit youth access to information and provide them with the opportunity to present their perspectives on government decisions, including the implementation of Agenda 21. So this is what we're seeing right now with the rioting, with the drafting of youth into radical organizations. This is the implementation of Chapter 25 of Agenda 21.
Right. Okay. Now, in those G7 pilot projects, the United States was assigned the environmentalism as their pilot project. Okay. Recently, Mark Windows of Windows on the World website, I occasionally do, or the past few weeks, I've been doing a program with him one day a week. And he found this organization called Common Good. And Common Good is funded by the Rockefeller Foundation. And it's supposed to change the thinking of people to thinking towards the common good, which is, of course, is communitarianism and all of that stuff. But another website that I found was called Plexus Institute. And it says Plexus Institute encompasses new and established practices organized around sharing of knowledge and offering expertise in complexity thinking to navigate challenges and opportunities in complex systems. Okay, now one of the papers that I found on there is a common project paper. And this has to do with green thinking, the green economy. And I have to read this so that you get it, okay? It says, the Commons Project seeks to establish a new market-based economy where the economic motivation is not maximization of self-interest, but a minimization of resource use based on maintaining a sustainable existence. In this economy, profit is the continuous minimization of resource use through innovation. The tokens earned through the reduction in resource use will be credited to the end users and the creators of the innovation.
Wow.
The decreased environmental dependency and establishment of a market economy based on distributed governance system has the potential to create a transparent, user-driven, and robust system of resource use.
Wow. There it is.
Okay, it goes on to talk about in the future there'll be you'll have your minimum basic income, universal basic income, and then you can earn tokens on top of it through minimizing resource use through this system. And it's an app that is on your phone.
And there you go. I mean, they're already telling us, Vicky, that we have a national coin shortage, which I don't buy. Why would there be a national coin shortage unless somebody is withdrawing a whole lot of coins out of circulation?
Right, that's what it is. They're just taking them out of circulation because they want to move to electronic currency. And with electronic currency, of course, they'll be able to assign a universal basic income, and you'll just pay for things with your phone.
And if you speak out too much, you might be Millie Weavered, only in an electronic sort of way.
Yes.
Your digits just disappear, and you can't do anything.
That's right. It's the social control system of the communist Chinese. Okay, but you know what? You remember recently it came out there saying that Russia was paying the Taliban or whoever to kill our soldiers?
Yes.
Well, this kind of a system is the way that you could do a lot of things like that with no actual money changing hands and not even any face-to-face contact. It's kind of like a 21st century edition of murder for hire.
Well, they pretty much can already do that with this cryptocurrency, can't they?
Well, this is about cryptocurrency. That's
right.
what this is. That's what this token system is.
But they don't even need the token.
Token represents a value of money. You could call it money, but it's really it's a digital representation of currency.
Yeah, my assertion though is that they already have, without even going to the token system, they already have ways of transferring the money, if you want to call it money, and I mean that being very loosely defined. But the cryptocurrency has enabled all manner of criminal activity. And
it's the same thing. They just use the word token because it gives people something to visualize that they can connect with in the real world, like a quarter. You know, if you think of a token as a quarter, but a token might actually be $1,000. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. It is a data. It's a piece of data that has a value.
Yeah, I don't want to get us too far off track because I think this intelligence stuff and the Antifa stuff, all of it dovetails beautifully. Yeah, I think.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I was getting to that. Okay, now you.
Well, no, I wasn't talking about you.
That are learning about environmentalism and radicalism, and this system is the children could be taught this radical environmentalism and green economy, and they could be rewarded via this system.
Mm-hmm.
Because they all have cell phones, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think the overwhelming majority of people have cell phones, and I think it's very interesting too from that documentary. They talk about how all these organizers, all these people that are radically going out and doing all these protests, and Obama was the one that gave them, gave, quote unquote, he made sure that they got the Obama phone, back in, during his administration. Why would he do that? And now it becomes very apparent because in order to organize people, these phones are very convenient for that purpose.
Right.
So
there was a guy that was arrested and put into prison up in Alaska for the same thing, doing the same thing. He accepted he was organizing the libertarian community.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget what his name is. But basically they set him up and put him in prison for doing this same kind of thing, organizing and communicating via cell phone.
Yeah, when I said I didn't want to get us too far off track. I was talking about me, not you.
Oh, that's okay.
But I did want to. I wanted to squeeze this in because since we're talking about Agenda 21, this goes right along with Agenda 21 and the homeowners associations that are controlling so many people today. There is a Geico commercial. Believe it or not, a Geico commercial is airing right now, which is kind of like, kind of a slapstick thing on the homeowners associations. Evidently, this tyranny has become so commonplace in America now that, they're figuring that you're going to get the joke. And every aspect of your life is being controlled. So they're making light of this in the Geico commercial.
Oh, we love our new home. The neighborhood's great.
Amazing school district. The HOA has been very involved.
These shrubs aren't board approved. You need to break down your cardboard.
Thank you.
Violation. Violation.
She's cutting down plants because they're violations.
I see you've met Cynthia.
At least Geico makes bundling our home and car insurance easy.
It does help us save a bunch of money.
Okay, now she's got a chainsaw and she's cutting down their mailbox.
2 inches over regulation.
Thanks, Cynthia.
For bundling made easy, go to geico.com.
Can you believe that? Now there is
that that system is definitely the communist Chinese system. They used to have old women doing the going around the neighborhood, but when I read about it, what I read was that she was actually looking for pregnant women or women that were going to have more than one baby.
Wow.
And, the woman would then be forced to have an abortion. But the concept is the same, where you have a block monitor.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And this is so commonplace. You got big, giant corporations now advertising, and they're incorporating this into their advertising, like it's funny or something. Now, the YouTube video has a little special bonus at the end because they were encouraging people to share the video.
Well, to see more great Geico videos, hit the subscribe button.
And don't forget to hit share. We need to get pre-approval from the board before we share any videos, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia.
You're welcome.
I mean, I just think this is sick.
I do too, and what makes me most sick is the compliance.
Yeah.
I can't stand the compliance.
Yeah, and I know people who are living under this tyranny, and you're right. They seem to just be the type of people that are very compliant and say, "Well, I don't want to upset my neighbors."
Yeah. I had breakfast at Denny's yesterday or the day before, and this older woman, she and her husband were there having breakfast, and on their way out, she stopped at my table, and, she said, "How are you today?" And she's looking straight at me, like I'm supposed to be looking at her, and she's got her mask on. I know she wanted to say something to me, but I don't know. I don't think she dared. After I looked at her, I don't think she dared.
Well, these face diapers are not going away anytime soon, if ever. And there are people now that are talking about making them permanent.
I think they are going to make them permanent until absolutely everybody has one of these medical IDs that says you're, quote, immune. I think they will keep the masks on. It was just a ploy. It's just a dialectic to get, serves a number of purposes.
Yeah.
But one of the purposes is the ID that says that you are COVID-free. So you can travel, you can be a member of society. And until that time, you're kind of, you're
on the outcast.
Yeah, an outsider.
Mm-hmm. Now, circling back around, we were talking about the drafting of minors into activist roles in these radical groups. This movement, this Antifa movement, is being abused. Also, earlier we were talking about private intelligence and their role in everything. This Antifa and Black Lives Matter organizations, They really go along with the private intelligence companies.
Notice they want privileged white suburban children to be on the front lines of the risk actions.
A really important thing to think about as Sunrise, which is right now a predominantly white and predominantly middle, upper middle, managerial class movement.
Every one of us has a lot of work to do to end these systems, and the more privilege we have in relationship to Blackness, the more responsibility we have to fight to end these systems.
It should be noted that Aaron Berger, the international advisor for the Sunrise Movement, is the CEO for Asymmetric Solutions, a military contracting company that specializes in military training, cybersecurity, and global strategies.
And Asymmetric Solutions, USA.com, is their website.
That says it all. That tells you everything.
Yeah, yeah, very important information. This Asymmetric Solutions, they say the right decision is an informed decision. Partner with a team that has successfully provided observation and analysis to national command authorities to minimize risk associated with costly decisions. The process ensures confidence in the individuals and entities making the critical decisions for themselves or their companies. And I see that we're nearly up to the break already. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and take the break. And when we'll come back, I'd like to continue a little bit more with some of this Antifa information. because this is, I think, vitally important. It's certainly relevant as this stuff is going on. They are the national security state, ladies and gentlemen. The deep state, the intelligentsia, are terrorizing the American people in many ways. The COVID-19 tyranny is just a part of it. The Antifa and Black Lives Matter is a part of it. They're pulling out all the stops, conducting psychological warfare against the people because they're determined to get you to give up your freedoms. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
Where the spooks go to find out what's really going on. This is Govern America.
And we're back. This is Govern America. Vicky Davis is here. I'm Darren Weeks. GovernAmerica.com is the website for the show, and thetechnocratictyranny.com is Vicky's website. As we continue on here, I was looking a little more at this Asymmetric Solutions website. They say our mission is to provide experienced, customer-focused operational services that directly contribute to increasing the survivability of those that put themselves in harm's way on behalf of others. Our team of members' mission: to be loyal, trustworthy, supportive, and committed teammate that regardless of encountered adversity and required self-sacrifice, will always maintain an above-average contribution to those beside me and the pursuit of our mission success. They talk about values, their purpose. There's a page here for staff. Our staff is comprised of combat-decorated, highly reputable members of various special operations units, elite government agencies, and seasoned special operations law enforcement officers who have performed countless operations nationally and internationally around the globe. These include Army Green Berets, Delta Force, and they name off a bunch of others. But in this list of special ops, they have Navy SEALs, CIA, SWAT. This evidently is a very, very, very huge company. But I will put this information in the show notes. The operational staff. I'm trying to find if there is anything there, because I don't want to kick myself later on for not pointing out something that I should have pointed out. But anyway, Asymmetric Solutions, listeners, it's asymmetricsolutionsusa.com, and that is one of the organizations, one of the paramilitary operational organizations that Millie pointed out, or the people in her documentary pointed out about Antifa and how they're operating. There's a also from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. St. Louis County Police Chief suspends training by company amid complaints. Trainer used racial and homophobic slurs. And this is about the same company. St. Louis County Police Chief John Belmar has suspended officer training by a local company after complaints that a trainer used racial and homophobic slurs. The suspension was announced Thursday in a letter to Belmar to officers. So, in other words, this Asymmetric Solutions, the real story here isn't the fact that they're using racial and homophobic slurs. It's the fact that why do we have a paramilitary organization training law enforcement? That's the real question here. And that's the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. So he suspended their training because of the racial and homophobic slurs. The question is, why are they training them in the first place?
Yeah,
Asymmetric solutions.
It's all part of building those relationships because of the way that they're reorganizing governance. I'm not going to say government because this is not government.
Right.
Governance, it's not just law enforcement, but it's all of our public officials. The public health system, it's being joined up with the federal level and so it's a takeover of our society and the reinvention, a redesign of our society for this technocratic tyranny.
Yeah. And all of this stuff is connected, and believe me, all of the Black Lives Matter and Antifa stuff, it comes down, it's connected very closely to the implementation of Agenda 21 and the Green New Deal. The climate justice movement ties in with this perfectly, folks. Make no mistake about it. They openly talk in their Zoom meetings about how burning buildings is a legitimate form of protest.
The Green New Deal is not about climate change. It's about climate justice. Essentially, they're blaming climate change on white people.
We won't have a Green New Deal that works for everyone unless we concurrently address the sickness that lies in the soul of America in things like white supremacy.
The events that erupted in Minneapolis, Minnesota, were not a spontaneous reaction to the murder of George Floyd. These were well-planned events, anticipating some perfect trigger points to bring about the new normal, a world without police, without borders, without industry, without wealth, without private property, without an economy. A world based on communist ideals embedded within the Green New Deal.
Organizers on the ground need money right now. We got to move that money to our comrades.
However, in order to normalize policies set forth by the Green New Deal, crises have to be capitalized on to further their agenda while destroying the great accomplishments of civil rights movements of the past. The goal was to kick off a national and international revolution of the likes the world has never seen, based off preventable and even instigated situations, creating political capital for leftist radicalization. In 2017, the stage had been set.
It needs to change now. It needs to start with each and every one of you.
The youth climate strike at the Minnesota State Capitol, a breeding ground for recruitment, was recorded and promoted by Unicorn Riot, a leftist media organization based out of Minneapolis, with video libraries promoting Antifa, who provided the most up-and-close coverage of the Minneapolis riots. Less than 2 days after George Floyd's murder circulated on social media, the Sunrise Movement organizers are already calling their young members to action.
We are currently witnessing, an uprising. I believe it's extremely important that we come together as a movement to look at the roots of this violence and resistance and what our work has to do with ending white supremacy. We are here to fight back collectively against that system.
So Black organizers and multiracial groups of organizers in Minneapolis have been building power in the city for years now. And part of what they've been able to do with that power is to bring a lot of the city on their side.
So not only does this organizer admit that the apparent chaos is organized and orchestrated, but suggested that setting buildings on fire is a legitimate form of resistance.
What we are seeing is not just chaos, we're actually seeing resistance and organizing. And what we know is that uprisings, including actions like burning buildings, are legitimate and powerful forms of resistance and are resisting brutal and violent and dehumanizing systems like white supremacy. And that property is something that can be recovered.
So behind this alleged climate change movement is the goal of abolishing law enforcement and no longer having police.
These are organizations that have built strength and power over the past 6 years of the Black Lives Matter movement in Minneapolis, running strategic campaigns to defund the Minneapolis Police Department, oriented around a vision of the abolition of police. So the idea that we're actually fighting for a world without police. And these campaigns that folks are running are strategic and they're winnable. And we can make huge gains toward it in moments of uprisings like these.
Now, Millie doesn't point this out, but I noticed that these groups, when they hold their Zoom calls, they divide their Zoom calls into smaller groups. And that's a telltale sign of using the Delphi technique. What's interesting is and the Delphi technique, for those that are unfamiliar, is it's a way of dividing. It's basically a way of dividing people into, to dialogue them into consensus. You divide them into groups, marginalize certain people who might be against what you're trying to do, determine who the people are that tend to be the most objection prone to what you're doing, and the people that go along, the compliant ones, and that sort of thing. But the whole idea is to deal with any opposition that you might have and to basically manipulate people into going along, even though in many cases they won't even be aware that they're being manipulated.
I think most of them aren't aware, and that includes the ones at the top, because what these poor, ignorant children don't understand is that once they destroy the system of government that we have and this technocratic tyranny, the full-scale technocratic tyranny is implemented, there will be no freedom for anybody, and it doesn't matter what color you are. This is not about black and white and brown. This is about technocratic control and a technocratic control grid, and everybody will be under it.
Yeah. But the ironic part about this, in bringing up the Delphi technique, these social justice warriors who are supposedly trying to end racism are dividing their group Zoom participants into groups. And they're doing this based upon their race. So they're dropping links into they're dropping links into their chat room, which will, take the participants into a chat room. Is that not segregation? I mean,
yeah, it is, but that's not the point. That's what I'm saying is that they're all being used. They've been given an ideology that is a false ideology because there is a bigger objective, a bigger goal than what they know about. So you give them something easy that they can understand, black and white and brown, because they are children. And so, so that they can comprehend what you're telling them, and they are being propagandized. And so you've got to have people in different groups because you've got to design the message to be something that you can sell to them.
Yeah, I'm surprised they're smart enough to know their colors. That has to be. But they definitely seem to teach people their colors. That's for sure. Anyway, I got a couple more of these, and then we'll let that go and move on to something else.
Notice they are segregationists, not much different from the white supremacists they point at as perpetuating systemic white supremacy.
So we are going to head into breakout groups based on our racial identities.
Yep, so white folks, you're going to stay here. Just don't click anything. Just hold tight. Black, African-American.
You're going to stay here, white people, because you need to be shamed.
And folks, here's your link. And non-Black POC folks, here you go as well.
Gabby's going to redrop in the chat the 4 groups that are on the front lines of this fight. Black Visions, Reclaim the Block, Louisville Community Bail Fund, and Dream Defenders.
Wow, they were already in the works to get funds to rioters to help them mobilize and bail them out of jail. Keith Ellison, an Antifa-supporting Democrat, former representative and deputy chair of the Democrat National Convention, is the current Attorney General for the state of Minnesota. Ellison was in a position to push for criminal justice reform prior to George Floyd's murder. So why didn't he? Ilhan Omar, the radical progressive Minnesota representative whose district includes Minneapolis, was alleged to have been seen mingling with Antifa protesters at a Trump rally in Minnesota 7 months earlier with her married boyfriend, Tim Minette. Though the Democrat mayor demanded that brutal police tactics be restricted in Minneapolis, the tactics were allowed to continue. Notice the organizations and some of the most outspoken Democrats against President Trump actually facilitated, if not helped, in the pre-planning of these riots that uniquely happened in Democrat-controlled areas? Is it because they have Democrat attorney generals, DAs, mayors, governors, etc., all ready to let these rioters right back out of jail when they get caught?
So, we know
that is what happened, by the way. The charges were dropped against Antifa in Portland.
Yeah. We know that that Antifa is a terrorist organization. And, and the question is, of course, obviously these people, I follow, I think it's Andy, is it Andy Go?
No.
Okay. NGO. Yeah, I follow him on Twitter. I've got it set up so that I get notifications whenever he tweets because he's constantly on the front lines of reporting what's going on there. And, because I don't know, I don't watch the major mainstream media much at all. If I watch it at all, it's just to critique. But I don't even know how much of this is actually even being reported that these so-called protests are still going on.
I don't know either. I don't watch mainstream propaganda either.
But the question is, and I wonder how much. Well, the American people, I think people are more tuned in, they're more plugged in to the internet and to the current political situation than they ever have been before. So I think a lot of what the media says doesn't apply, at least to the people who have critical thinking. The difficulty, of course, is there's a lot of people who are conned. I think half the population, and they would be on the more left Democrat side for the most part. That's not to say that right-wing people aren't conned in certain ways, but I think
they totally
people on the right. Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is the people on the right tend to look at the media a little more critically than people on the left. Would you say that's a fair statement?
Yes, I would have to say so.
And of course, there's always exceptions. I mean, there's always people on the left that don't buy into a lot of what the media says. I don't like making blanket statements, but these protests that are going on, I hate to use that word, these violent riots and really it's terrorism.
Yes, it is, and which makes you wonder why isn't the government doing anything about it? Because I'm a senior citizen. In times past, they stopped this kind of stuff that was going on amongst young people. But today, they're not only not doing it, they're allowing the funding of it. And it's really quite out in the open. So that tells you that this layer of government that has executed a coup d'etat on our government, and it happened before Trump, it is really in control, because otherwise they would put a stop to this.
Yeah. And I just wanted to point out, well, I'll tell you what. I'll do this after the next clip because I have one more clip from Millie and her excellent work at exposing the funding and organizations that are behind Antifa. Because we know it's a terrorist organization. They are an international organization that has ties to the PKK in Syria. I've mentioned that actually before on the program. They were actually trained by the PKK, which is a communist terrorist organization which has been funded by the U.S. taxpayer, by the way, to overthrow Syria's Bashar al-Assad. The PKK trained Antifa. So it isn't surprising that radicals like Ilhan Omar and several other Democrats and their children support both organizations.
Ilhan Omar has been an apologist for militant groups fighting in Syria, fighting alongside with Antifa militant groups.
Groups like the International Revolutionary People's Guerrilla Forces, it is clear that this is the time for anarchist revolutionaries to act without hesitation.
Where was she when preventative measures could have been taken to prevent the riots?
Facial recognition has confirmed that Ilhan Omar and her boyfriend Tim Minette were in attendance at the riots following the Trump rally in Minneapolis.
Oh, yeah. And did I mention her daughter was promoting Antifa during the riots? And the governor of Minnesota's daughter was tweeting out police locations to Antifa during the riots. Or how about Keith Ellison's son, a legislator in Minnesota, calling for police abolition? And what about Representative Kaine, Hillary Clinton's running mate? His son's involved with these Antifa groups as well. The person that we know inside sent off a bunch of their communique to the DOJ, and then, interestingly, Discord put out a public statement saying they won't help aid terrorism and put out a warning. Then, on Twitter, we saw lots of these leftist Black Lives Matter and Sunrise Movement kids all saying, don't use Discord anymore, switch to Signal. It's also interesting that Jack Dorsey also at the exact prime moment put out a tweet saying everyone switch to Signal.
19 of our 30 endorsed candidates won their seats. And we endorsed and elected some amazing candidates, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and Rashida Tlaib.
The same Sunrise Movement organizers that helped get the squad into office also helped set the stage for the mass protests, burning of buildings, escalation of destruction in Minneapolis, and throughout the United States, using George Floyd's death as their trigger moment to launch their communist revolution.
And with all the intelligence that we have, that the federal government has, and the Justice Department, you got to ask yourself, where is the Justice Department? Why hasn't any of this been investigated? Why aren't there any prosecutions going on? These people who are helping this along, she mentioned Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, but there's so many local officials who are helping this along. The question is, why aren't any of these people who are guilty of sedition, why are they not being brought to justice, or at the very least investigated? I don't see anything. The silence is deafening.
Maybe tokens. That's the thing about that system, the cryptocurrency, is that money can change hands, and there's no way to know about it unless you have somebody's phone and you can see the app on their phone. So what is it for an official to just take no action? Yeah. They take on the persona of a person who sees nothing, hears nothing, knows no evil. Yeah. Even though their city is being destroyed, the young people are being radicalized, they see nothing.
Yep. I tell you what, we got a call on the line, and folks, you're welcome to call in if you have something to add. It's 610-600-1776. That number again is 610-600-1776. Or if you don't have free long distance, you can call toll free 844-646-8376. That's toll free 8446-GOVERN. Easy way to remember it. All right. Up first, we have John in Tennessee. Wow, that doesn't sound good. Hey, John, how you doing?
Well, I'm doing well. Hey, Vicky. Darren,
Hi.
I've heard protests. I've heard terrorism. You finally said the word sedition. These people are committing sedition. What we're looking at worldwide, I believe, and tell me if I'm wrong, we're looking at a worldwide revolution similar to the Bolshevik Revolution. They are literally they're not hiding anymore. They want global government. I heard day before yesterday the World Economic Forum talking about the fact that if this pandemic doesn't work, there are other things waiting in the wings. So they have gone full-blown to a global government.
Yeah, yes. They're pulling out all the stops, John. We are getting down to the wire of, this is the end game. We're witnessing the end game of the New World Order unfold before us right now.
Yeah, and I've written about it on my new website. I have an article called Government Within a Government, and I actually talk about the horizontal relinking of the administrative agencies of government, which is the problem that we're having with the intelligence community. They linked up with first the Five Eyes countries, but they've expanded it. So in the redesign of government, they provided for horizontal linking for global governance, which means that they are destroying our national vertical government.
Yeah,
it's a war on all of the people, the regular people. It's a war on all of the people of the world. It's just this different kind of war. It's asymmetric warfare.
Yeah, we're coming down to the break here, John. You want to hold your thoughts and hold over the break?
Sure.
Okay. Keep your thoughts in place, and we're going to go ahead and take the final break of, going into the final hour anyway. Stay with us, folks. Govern America continues. Hour number 3 is straight ahead.
Before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
New world order.
New world order.
This is a moment to seize. The kaleidoscope has been shaken. The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
A new world order.
A world where the United Nations is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders.
Nevertheless, the United States is in a key position to shape this so that the problem of the Bush presidency will be the emergence of a new international order.
The first decade of the 21st century, that out of what will be seen as the greatest restructuring of the global economy, a new world order was created.
Documenting the crisis of our republic.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Waging war on the New World Order.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
This is Govern America with Darren Weeks and Vicky Davis.
Live from FEMA Regions 5 and 10, this is the third and final hour of Govern America. Vicky Davis is here, I'm Darren Weeks, and we have John in Tennessee on the line as well. I'm looking here at the publication from TRT World. I think that's a Turkish news agency. I think they're based in Istanbul. And they have a headline, Antifa, trained by terrorist PKK in Syria, may end up outlawed in the U.S. They say U.S. President Donald Trump aims to declare Antifa as domestic terrorist organization, but the group has been in Syria since 2014, and its violent record well documented after a series of controversial decisions taken by the Obama administration in 2015. You know, folks, the community organizer. They say U.S. President Donald Trump said on Sunday that he'd be designated Antifa as a terrorist organization in wake of the violent protests that have swept many American cities. Trump and the U.S. Attorney General William Barr have blamed Antifa members for hijacking peaceful protests, which started after a black man, George Floyd, we know the history there. But anyway, they say Washington has already put the Federal Investigation Agency in multiple cities on the job to track down the group's members. Well, if that's the case, why are they being released from jail when they're being arrested? You know, that's my issue with this whole thing.
They waited long, and the Trump administration probably waited long enough, for them to be arrested, maybe hoping that they would settle down a bit so that they wouldn't have to rein them in. Because it's all part of the plan,
Yeah, that seems to be the case. I know that...
Here's the thing.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Here's the thing. What would you think? And this is just a thought, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Washington is in the Northeast, surrounded by liberal states, democratic states. We see it's a full-fledged attack on the United States by these socialist, communist, whatever you want to call these Democrats. And I'm no fan of Trump, Darren. You know that.
Right.
But what if, prior to the election, things go so out of hand? I heard Pelosi say something a couple months ago that blew my mind. Regardless of whether or not Donald Trump wins the election, he will not be in the White House in the fall. So what if they basically proclaim that they've won the election, that they attempt to hold a inauguration, that there's a secession movement of the democratic states? But that's not out of the realm of the possibility to actually have democratic states secede from the Union and initiate another civil war. Go with global government. I know it sounds outlandish.
It doesn't sound outlandish.
Not to me.
Not to me either, because we know that the United States is already divided up into regions, and this seems to be the pattern we've seen around the world, especially in the Middle East, where they balkanize things and they divide things up and break pieces of countries off to form smaller pieces because it's easier to conquer them and to control them that way. And so, I reminded of that. I don't know if it was a Russian general or I'm going to have to look that up again. Several years ago, we were talking about how this particular high-ranking Russian official discussed that in the future he thought that the United States would be divided up, would be split up into regions, and not the regions that we have nowadays. It would be something basically into different smaller states. And that stuck with me.
Independent states of a commonwealth, the same as the Soviet Union was broken up. They broke up into independent states of a commonwealth. And in the Northeast, Idaho is in a region that includes some Canadian states. And I know that Duncan Hunter, who was on the Armed Services Committee before he retired, I think, he was involved in that. So,
yeah.
So I
go
think
ahead.
It is a planned. It's the plan.
Yeah, John, you were trying to say something?
See, in 2008, when they did the bailout after the bubble broke, I wrote an article on my blog before Google took it down. It was "Welcome to the USSA." Okay, the United Soviet States of America. Now, having said that, and we're Soviet states, government is controlling business, or business is controlling government. More truth to that. But if you were Donald Trump situated in D.C., you're surrounded by hostile states, and you knew something was coming. If you were going to basically abandon D.C., I'm telling you, he's not in a good place in the country. So if you're going to abandon, where would you go if you were Donald Trump? You might come to the Southeast, which takes me back to something that I heard Huckabee say when he was filling in after he dropped out of the presidential race. When he was running, he said something back then, and I think that was, 2012, maybe? He said, if I was president, I would move the capital to Nashville, Tennessee. Well, that sounds crazy in itself, too. But Nashville is surrounded. It touches 11 states that are all that's where his support is at. And Tennessee is in the middle of all of them.
Yeah.
So it's entirely possible to me that Nashville could be the new capital of the, what do you want to say, the free...
Well, a lot of people have speculated about Colorado, too. I mean, because there's a whole lot of things that have moved out there. I don't know. I mean, we could speculate unless you actually see the plans. You're not really aware. I wanted to point out...
I have...
There's a developing story right now. Apparently, there's a protest going on right now in Georgia, Stone Mountain Park in Georgia. I'm seeing chatter in the chat room about this. They're calling it a white supremacist, white nationalist thing that's going on. Of course, they use those definitions very, very loosely. But basically, there's a story that's developing here that we're going to have to keep an eye on. But anyway, John.
Well, I knew that was. Okay, I'll let you go.
Yeah, I don't mean to cut you off.
Here.
Yeah. All right. Let's. I'm also hearing some more noise on the line. So I don't know. Maybe they didn't get all of it fixed. I don't know if that was John or my stuff, but we'll find out here as soon as we talk to Dan. Dan in Kentucky. Dan, go ahead. You're on the air.
Darren, Vicky, great show as always. Nancy Pelosi said recently this week that Trump will be fumigated from the White House. Did you hear that?
No, but it doesn't surprise me. It's the kind of gutter level rhetoric that has
attack or something to get out of D.C. I mean, who knows what their plans are? But I wanted to talk about solutions, and there's three that I can think of. Number one is people need to immediately react to people and say, don't bully me, because this is really bullying, and you can back down a bully. And if we let this go on too strong, it won't work. Number two, James McCanney, in his website, McCannyscience.org, I think it is, or com, on March 4th,
it's .com.
On March 6th, 2014, has a lecture where he released a book called RSA Code, Breaking RSA Codes for Fun and Profit. And he went offshore to publish this book so he wouldn't have any injunctions from lawyers. And along with that, he has a table of mathematical number tables that's a hard copy DVD. And I wish I could read it. I can't. But it proves that prime numbers are not random. And since they use prime numbers for encryption of websites, the point is that all websites are open to being reverse engineered. Just like in Idaho Falls, I think it was, I heard, Vicky, that some people in town got together and blocked the road, and the Antifa people went home, and you all played that clip last week that said, about don't point a gun at me, and they said, that's why you're peaceful.
Yeah.
So the point of all these solutions is to reframe everything so that they will back down. And if people looked at this March 6, 2014 lecture, and if this works, then people could put up something like a good housekeeping seal on their websites and say, this website is protected and nobody will be able to hack me without consequences. And that would scare the, what out of them. The third thing is, and on your show somebody mentioned this years ago, smart meters don't have microwave, but your caller suggested if you take the door off of a microwave and you seal it around your smart meter and turn it on and zap the smart meter, it won't work. It'll break, and they can't fix it. So I want to thank you all for your show today. And
I appreciate it. I suspect what they'll do is just bring another meter, or they'll just cut your electricity off until you pay for the meter.
Well, as things get more chaotic, they have more important things to do than keep fixing a meter that doesn't work, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thought anyway. Hey, thanks, Dan.
Good idea.
Thanks,
Dan.
Appreciate the call there. God bless you.
It would work. Yeah. That would work. And we don't even have a microwave. I don't believe in them, but...
Yeah, a lot of people don't. Hey,
y'all do a great job. And as far as Millie Weaver, I think that people can, share videos and share your shows, and people need to... I don't do Twitter or any of that stuff, but... people who do, just share your stuff. Don't just look at stuff. Share it and spread it to other people, because people need to wake up. And that bully angle is a really good thing, because people don't like to be bullied. And they just had that movement recently where, they were encouraging kids who were bullied at school to speak up. So let's do that too.
Yeah.
I went to the doctor for an outpatient thing, and I went on a handicapped bus, and I didn't wear my mask, and they dropped me in the ER, and then they took me over to the doctor building. I was there over an hour and then came back. I didn't have a mask on, and nobody said a thing about it. So you can intimidate them if you want to, like you did at Denny's, Vicky.
Yeah. Well, somebody pointed out that, if COVID is so dangerous, why aren't the homeless people getting it and dropping off like flies? The people, the biggest number of casualties occurred in New York when Cuomo put COVID-positive people in the old folks' home.
Yep.
And frankly, I think he was just saving on Medicaid dollars.
That's right.
And it wasn't to, and just to insert this.
You can make.
Wait a minute, Dan. Hold on. I just have to say, it wasn't just Cuomo that did that. There were other Democratic governors that did the same thing, including the one here in Michigan, Governor Gretchen Whitmer. So
they're nice people, aren't they?
It's called Agenda 21 population control is what it is.
Yeah.
Anyway. And Medicaid budget reduction.
And people can make their own HCl, hydrochloroquine. You get peels of grapefruit or lemon, cover it with 3 inches of water in a pan, heat it up, leave it covered, don't let the steam come out, because that's where the quinine is. Cool it down and then sweeten it to taste. And if you take zinc and azithromycin with it, there's stuff that Corsi has and other people all over the place that cures the COVID.
Yep. There you go.
Well, good to know. Thank you.
Interesting information. I didn't know that. Hey, thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. God bless you, sir.
There's an email going around about it.
Okay. Very good.
I'll send it to you if I didn't.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you. I appreciate the call. Whoops. Thank you very much. I want to move on here because we're getting out of this hour here already. One of the things you mentioned, Cuomo, regarding all of the subversion and Antifa stuff, Governor Cuomo on NBC News.
Let me ask you on another topic. President Trump mentioned in an interview that he feels cities should take further action to stop monuments from being destroyed. We saw that scene at the White House with the Andrew Jackson statue near the White House. We know, for example, Theodore Roosevelt's statue is coming down in New York City. Do you agree with the president's guidance that cities should do more to protect monuments?
Yeah, I don't even know what the president's guidance is, Savannah, frankly. Cities are making decisions. The Teddy Roosevelt statue, I think it was less about Teddy Roosevelt, but the other parts of that statue. And look, people are making a statement. about equality, about community, to be against racism, against slavery. I think those are good statements, and it depends, can you overdo it? Of course you can. But in New York, I don't think we've overdone it, and I think it's a healthy expression of people saying, let's get some priorities here, and let's remember the sin and mistake that this nation made, and let's not celebrate it.
So, tearing down statues, burning down buildings, setting fires, hey, that's just a legitimate expression, a healthy expression, he said, of anger.
Yeah, things like that just make me want to just go ballistic, go postal.
Well, that's exactly why this is happening.
They haven't given us any guidance. What the hell guidance do you need? If they're tearing down a statue, if people want to take down a statue, there are ways to do that. Meet with the city council, and you make a proposal, and then they vote on it,
and
then the city takes it down.
Yeah, they go through the process. If it doesn't,
rather than allowing animals to just tear it down.
Yeah, exactly. Well, since we're on the subject of, and we got this, regarding turning the corner for the COVID-19, we see this from the Post-Millennial. 600,000 people were told that they had COVID-19 despite not being tested. I've heard so many different places, Vicky, where you hear stories about people, and it's not just a few. There's been an overwhelming number of people who thought they might have COVID and at the very least wanted to get tested. And they had scheduled an appointment, and either they overslept or for whatever reason couldn't make the appointment, and then it came back that they were positive. And they had never even been tested. I mean, this is happening a lot. I'm hearing a lot of stories regarding this. So it doesn't surprise me that they're reporting 600,000 people were told that they had it despite not being tested. And that goes to show you that every time the state, your state, my state, comes out with these numbers, it's bad enough that they're jacking up the numbers by paying the doctors and hospitals to artificially inflate the numbers. We talked about that CDC document, which they put out. $13,000 if you have a case, and $39,000 if it's a death. That so I mean
that's murder for hire. By the way, I mean that's paying for a diagnosis. Implicit in that
it's almost
paying
like
the doctor to you're giving him incentive to kill the people.
Yeah, it's almost like, well, I don't know, putting COVID positive people in nursing homes. I don't see any difference. Mm-hmm. So if people can't see what's going on here, then you're just willfully blind, But Cuomo held a press conference in which he admitted that, basically what we've been saying all along, that, he was talking about the numbers, and at the time they had dropped. I don't know what the numbers are doing, because, again, I don't pay attention to the numbers because they're bogus. They're provably bogus. But anyway, at the time the numbers had dropped, but he let the cat out of the bag that it all depends upon how the numbers are coded.
Today is a day of good news. We have one of the lowest hospitalization rates since this began, and really good news, we have the lowest death rate. It's down to 35. I've been asking all the experts who will talk to me, what is the lowest that number can go? And when it gets this low, it's really a question of what they're attributing as the cause of death. In other words, you have people who are gravely ill, who are going to die of something, and if they get the COVID virus, they attribute it to the COVID virus. But there is a number, when it gets down this low, it's really a question of what that hospital certifies as a cause of death.
There you go.
Uh-huh.
When it gets down this low, it's really a question of how they certify it. And it's really a question of it anyway.
Yeah, it's always been a question of that.
And
I mean, some doctors did refuse, to, even though the person may have died of old age and other complications, but also had COVID, but they didn't code COVID as the cause of death because it wasn't. But, honest people, when you're talking about money, apparently, honest people are few and far between.
Yeah,
which is pretty shocking to me.
There's a Dr. Scott Atlas, which Trump has just tapped on to add to his board of advisors. And some people are calling this a game changer that he tapped Scott Atlas, because this doctor, has been apparently very critical of Dr. Anthony Fauci. So it's interesting that Trump tapped that guy, and he is going to be advising Trump. I don't know whether it's just, I know that that's kind of Trump's style, where he likes to hear different sides of an argument, and he enjoys the chaos of people, his staff, arguing it out. So it could be some of that, but it's just I thought noteworthy just to point out that there is some diversity of viewpoints, evidently.
Or maybe they've progressed along enough that he just wants to call an end to the game.
I don't know. And that certainly could be true. Could be true too.
Yeah. Wasn't Atlas the person who held the world in his hands?
Yeah, well, I don't know. That's the guy's name, I assume. But,
yeah,
I mean, that's what they say. Anyway, there's some other things going on. One of the things that we're hearing a lot about, you heard about these seeds coming from China?
Yes.
These mystery seeds. Certain people have been finding seeds that are in their mailbox. They haven't ordered them. Evidently, they're coming from the People's Republic of China. Well, now the latest thing is that they're finding that there are also masks, face diapers, that are arriving as well. And one news outlet believes that they found why that's happening. This is what their report was on the subject.
We all love getting freebies, but if you receive face masks, seeds, jewelry, or anything else that you didn't order from China, chances are it is not a gift. It started with mysterious packages of seeds. Now, people across the country are receiving unsolicited face masks from Chinese companies.
I looked at the label, and it had, it said Shanghai, China, from a certain district, and all this information, including my cell phone number on there.
That got Shan Sharp's attention. She carefully opened the package and expected to see seeds like the ones she's heard about on News Channel 8. But instead, she found 2 packages of face masks similar to these. She threw hers in the trash. First the seeds, now masks. What do you make of it?
Like I said, I was afraid to even open it after I saw it, and then I didn't want to keep it in my house.
She knew she'd better call Bankin to spread the word. I did some digging and found this is part of a scheme the FTC and BBB call brushing. Sellers get your address, username, or even Amazon profile and send you unsolicited items, typically lightweight and cheap. They then use your name to post false consumer reviews to boost their sales. Given the ongoing pandemic, Sharp tells me she found the face mask particularly puzzling. Does it feel creepy to get these masks that you didn't order?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I was kind of freaked out, especially when I saw it was from Shanghai, China.
The good news is that this is not a scheme that should cost you any money, but chances are your identity is being used to make some unknown company look good online. So if you receive unsolicited items from China, you need to change all of your e-commerce passwords. I'm Shannon Bankin, 8 on your side.
Okay, I think it's an interesting explanation. I'm not sure I entirely buy it. Maybe that's
I'm not either.
Maybe that's true.
Especially since there's a seed global health. And let's see. The Global Health Service Corp was renamed Seed Global Health in 2010, and both Barbara Bush and Vanessa Carey were involved in it. So It's important, but the concept of seed with a mask as a medical device, I don't know, it just kind of brings to mind global health.
Well, it bothers me that, as I think back with the blankets and the Indians and how, smallpox was spread, with blankets. And, you put these things on your face. That would be a very interesting way of spreading disease to the United States in the case of that you wanted.
Don't give anybody any ideas,
Darren.
Darren.
Like they haven't thought of this. But, yeah, and then we do know, I can tell you that China is all over our streams, all over our website. They monitor us incredibly. And that's been something that's been a fairly recent addition, a fairly recent phenomenon that began. Anyway,
well,
but
the community clinics, and they're all part of the global health system, which is part of the corridor transportation system, with port hubs and connections of the research libraries. It's all part of a big connected design. It's all one big system with multiple components.
Mm-hmm.
And community health is part of it.
Interesting that Mike Pompeo, this is one thing that you sent me, this press statement, designation of the Confucius Institute, U.S. Center as a foreign mission of the PRC. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, this is from the State Department website. The Trump administration has made it a priority to seek fair and reciprocal treatment from the People's Republic of China. For more than 4 decades, Beijing has enjoyed a free and open access to U.S. society while denying that same access to Americans and other foreigners in China. Furthermore, the PRC has taken advantage of Americans' openness to undertake large-scale and well-funded propaganda efforts and influence operations in this country. Today, the Department of State designated the Confucius Institute U.S. Center as a foreign mission of the PRC, recognizing CIUS for what it is, an entity advancing Beijing's global propaganda and malign influence campaign on U.S. campuses and K-12 classrooms. See, I don't even know. I knew the campuses were a reality. I didn't know they were operating also in grade school classrooms.
The one that they were going to put in Boise was elementary school.
Unbelievable. Confucius Institutes, they say, are funded by the PRC and part of the Chinese Communist Party's global influence and propaganda apparatus. The goal of these actions is simple: to ensure that American educators and school administrators can make informed choices about whether these CCP-backed programs should be allowed to continue, and if so, in what fashion. Universities around the country and around the world are examining the Confucius Institute's curriculum and the scope of Beijing's influence in their education systems. The United States wants to ensure that students on U.S. campuses have access to Chinese language and cultural offerings free from the manipulation of the Chinese Communist Party and its proxies. So, the fact that this has ever been allowed to happen in the first place is an indictment of those who are in the federal government. I remember, again, we come back to Bill Kaufman. We had him numerous times as a guest on this show where he had tried his best, and of course he was a rocket scientist, as you'll recall, and he helped, some of his nose cone technology was, he helped NASA perfect nose cone technology, so they adopted a lot of his stuff. But the point is, he taught about, all of this physics and stuff in the University of Michigan. And he noticed delegations from Harbin Institute coming in. Harbin Institute is the PRC's, the People's Republic of China's institute where they teach people how to be good soldiers and, I guess, intelligence operatives, I guess. Anyway, if you're going to go into the People's Liberation Army, you go to Harbin Institute. But these Harbin Institute delegates were coming into the U of M, and Professor Kaufman was told by his superiors that you need to show them your stuff. And he says, I'm not going to do that. They're from China. They're they're planning wars. They could potentially be planning wars with us in the future, and certainly, I believe that to be the case. And we've been talking about it for years here. But the point is, everything, and he went up the chain of command there at the university, tried to get anybody to pay attention to him, and everything fell on deaf ears, and ultimately his classes were canceled. Essentially, he was fired because he was making noise. And after that time, he tried to get any kind of attention from the media. He even went to the FBI. Yes. He told the FBI. Yeah. And they investigated, did nothing. Did nothing. And is that any surprise that they did nothing? When we played audio on this show from one of the researchers, what was her name again? I'm blanking on her name, but she went down through Comey's history and all these other, the Orrs, all these different people who were involved with the FBI, and they were Reds. They were Reds. So, and I'm not trying to beat up on all FBI agents. I think there's probably some in the agency that are there because they want to fight interstate crime, but the problem is this whole thing is rotten to the core from the head. Well, the FBI was in the redesign. A lot of them, they were merged with the intelligence community. They, put them together and called it intelligence. I don't know, it's joint something or other. But So basically, they took away the FBI's mission of white-collar crime, it seems like. Yeah. In the waning moments of the broadcast, I've got, there's some effectiveness. We've got this information from the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons. They talk about mask facts on their website. And after going along in a long article, they say, final thoughts, surgical masks, they are designed to protect the patients from the doctor's respiratory droplets. The wearer is not protected from others' airborne particles. People do not wear masks properly. Most people have the mask under their nose. The wearer does not have glasses on, and the eyes are a port of entry. The designer masks and scarves offer minimal protection. They give a false sense of security to both the wearer and those around the wearer. Not to mention they add a perverse lightheartedness to the situation. If you're walking alone, no mask, avoid folks. That is common sense. Remember, children under 2 should not wear masks because of possibility of accidental suffocation and difficulty breathing. If wearing a mask makes people go out and get vitamin D, go for it. But they say that in the 1918 flu pandemic, people who went outside did better. Early reports are showing people with COVID-19 and low vitamin D do worse than those with normal levels. And they say that may be why shut-ins do so poorly. So I just thought that was noteworthy. There's also a thing from the National Institutes of Health website let's see, I'm just trying to find, it says, do face masks protect against COVID-19? There's a particular place in here, if I could find it real quick on the fly. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm just going to put this. They said evidence on the efficacy of masks is confounded by whether or not they are being used in a pandemic, whether by healthcare workers or the public. And there was a particular. Okay, some healthcare and ancillary hospital staff have mooted wearing surgical face masks all the time, even when asymptomatic, to protect. Well, I'll tell you what, I can't find these particular spot. Okay, here it is, I think. The public might wear masks to avoid infection or to protect others. During the 2009 pandemic of H1N1 influenza, swine flu, encouraging the public to wash their hands reduced the risk, increase infection significantly, whereas wearing face masks did not. And they say there is no good evidence that face masks protect the public against infection with respiratory viruses, including COVID-19. So that's from the National Institute of Health website. And, of course, as always, we'll put the link in the show notes. Meantime, Breitbart is reporting effectiveness unproven. Dutch government won't use mask mandate, no proven effectiveness. I won't read the article in the interest of time. I just thought, there's plenty of evidence out there that masks are not going to do the job. So what is it about? It's about manipulating people. It's about controlling your behavior. Because if they can tell you can't go into the store without a face diaper on, then they can tell you can't go into the store without your COVID passport.
It's training. You know what? I just have a mental block. Once I determine that something is that I'm being told is a lie, I just can't bring myself to discuss it in the terms they are giving me anymore. Like climate change, for example. I know it's not about the weather. It's not about anything that we're doing. It's a political movement, for conversion to give us all a single mission to save the planet. It's the green religion of Earth worship.
And how much damage?
I just can't talk about it in terms of saving the planet.
Right. Completely understandable. And there's also something that they call mask mouth. Apparently, more and more people are getting bad breath and oral hygiene problems, including cavities. There's a resurgence of dentists who are saying that a lot of people are getting cavities now that never had them before because of the long time, they're spending all day in these face diapers. And so apparently, I guess it's holding the bacteria in, which is helping to breed the type of bacteria that's causing cavities. It's an interesting problem that certainly an unexpected, at least by me, side effect. But they're doing everything they can to enforce this tyranny upon the people. And vaccines are coming. The vaccine enforcement, what we're seeing today with the masks, the vaccines are coming tomorrow.
As we race to develop a coronavirus vaccine, some major questions are emerging.
A lot of people are wondering if the government could force people to get it. Or could people who refuse get banned from stores or lose their jobs? ABC 10 News anchor Derek Stahl spoke with a legal expert to get some answers.
Imagine a world where you have to get vaccinated and show proof to go shopping, board a plane, or just go to work. Legally, it could happen, says University of San Diego law professor Dov Fox.
States can compel vaccinations in more or less intrusive ways. They can limit access to schools or services or jobs if people don't get vaccinated. It could force them to pay a fine or even lock them up in jail. Those measures have been adopted in other countries like France, but not so far in the United States.
It all dates back to a Supreme Court case in 1905. The court held that Massachusetts could fine people for not getting vaccinated against smallpox. That case became the basis of vaccine requirements at schools across the country.
Courts have found that when medical necessity requires it, the public health outweighs the individual rights and liberties at stake.
Just last year, New York City passed an ordinance fining people for not getting a measles vaccination. But there's a big difference between what states have the power to do and what Congress could do.
There are these questions, separation of powers, Commerce Clause questions.
Professor Fox says a federal vaccine requirement would probably get shot down by the current Supreme Court based on a 2012 ruling on the Affordable Care Act. That means we could have a patchwork of different vaccination requirements in different states. Professor Fox says states would need to allow exemptions for people with legitimate medical risks like pregnancy, but not exemptions for other reasons.
Religious exemptions, philosophical ones, have largely been overridden in the name of public health.
However, Professor Fox says recent protests over face coverings show there's a big risk of a backlash here. And just because states have the power to require vaccinations doesn't mean it's the best public policy. Derek Stahl, ABC 10 News.
And legal experts say that private businesses would have the authority to fire workers who don't want to get vaccinated for personal or religious reasons. Companies would just need to show that there are significant costs at stake for having unvaccinated employees.
This is why we have to have strength in numbers, and we have to have a lot of people pushing back on all of this stuff.
Well, you know what the stupidity of all this is? They say that I'm supposed to wear a mask to protect the other people. But that's ridiculous because I don't have it. So how am I
you might be a carrier
from something that I don't have?
You might be an asymptomatic carrier, Vicky. That's what they're getting at.
Yeah,
the whole thing is ridiculous. If you're vulnerable...
You know what? If people were dropping dead all over the place...
That's it.
If I could see signs that there really was a pandemic, I'd be... right in line for a vaccine.
There is no pandemic. Pandemic.
But there isn't. This is a dialectic. It's for a different purpose. So whatever they say about protecting anybody's health, it's all BS.
Yeah.
And I don't tolerate BS.
No, I don't tolerate it very well, I can tell you that. And I mentioned it before. Here we have an article from The Sun. Bill Gates warns multiple coronavirus vaccine doses likely to be needed. So if people think that they can just get out with one injection, and maybe I'll just compromise a little bit. No, that's not what they have planned. They're going to be sticking needles in your arm all the time.
It's a big medical research project. They're going to be sticking everybody with, different. They have different companies developing different vaccines, all for the same disease. Come on, I can't deal with it. I can't.
Yeah. Well, Anthony,
I can't deal with it as an adult and as if what they're saying is real and true.
Anthony Fauci was on ABC's Good Morning America. This guy is so drunk with power. He's now suggesting that people should wear eye protection in addition to the face diapers.
I think we're going to get to a point where eye protection is recommended.
It might. I mean, if you really want perfect protection of your mucosal surfaces, just for your audience, Jen, as you very well know, you have mucosa in the nose, mucosa in the mouth, but you also have mucosa in the eye. And that's one of the things that, theoretically, you should protect all the mucosal surfaces. So if you have goggles or an eye shield, you should use it. I mean, it's not universally recommended, but if you really want to be complete, you should probably use it if you can. It's just that it's so easy for people to just make a cloth mask.
So Deborah Birx was also asked about this, about hydroxychloroquine, and she claims that there is no evidence that it works, which is bogus. We got all kinds of evidence, despite numerous doctors. But one thing that she was asked about this very thing that she was on Fox and Friends, and she was asked about whether or not people, this comment that Dr. Fauci just made about whether eye protection should be required.
Doctor, your colleague, Dr. Fauci, has suggested recently that goggles would work even better, or in addition to. You're talking about masks. People have come around to the reality of that. Are we going to look at more demands based on what Dr. Fauci has said?
Well, I've seen really great face shields, and I've seen them around the country. I've been out to 14 states. The administration sent me out to all of the hot spots and then to the yellow states to really deliver specific messages about how to improve and prevent spread in their communities. And I've gotten to see a lot of exciting face masks out there, and face masks that come from the
exciting face masks, Vicky.
Bottom up, and I think that's really, the American people are innovative. Those are actually pretty easy and straightforward to make. Many universities and those who have printers are making face shields now. So these 3D printers can really increase that production, and I think others are making them, and they can be decorated.
So, Dr.
They can be decorated, Vicky. Woohoo!
No one's really interested in decorations. I want to know whether face shields or goggles is something we're going to hear next. Is this something that suddenly is going to become the new guideline?
So here's the thing about the face shield in addition to the mask. The mask is to protect others. It's to block those droplets and block that contamination that happens when you speak or sing or talk or even breathe. The thing about the face shields, we think that could protect the individuals and that it would decrease the ability for them to touch their eyes and spread virus as well as those droplets coming towards them. So they're two different technologies for two different reasons.
Unbelievable. Because we also heard now that the masks not only protect people from you, but it also helps you with your protection. So from don't wear a mask to wear a mask to now it can help you if it's spread, and now it can help you block. And now you're saying wear goggles. It's unbelievable. All right.
What do you think of that? I mean, these people, this is a game to these people. Oh, well, it is. The face shields can be decorated.
How stupid can we be and still get you to do what I'm telling you? It's like Simon Says. You remember what Simon Says when you were a kid?
Yeah.
You know, pat your hand on your head, turn around 3 times. It's just, you know, I don't know. I don't know why people are doing this.
What's the next step? I mean, if you get your face diaper and then you got your face goggles, what are they going to say next? That the virus is creeping into the pores of your skin? Maybe we all need to just be mummified. You just wrap our whole bodies up.
A clothespin for your nose.
Yeah.
You know, because it could
hold your breath.
Enter your nostrils, you know.
We'll all have to walk around with tanks on our backs. Unbelievable what these clowns are expecting us to buy. But the stores go along with it. The governors go along with it. And there's the problem. It's being pushed, mandated upon us. There needs to be a mass uprising against this. And I don't see it.
People don't understand that it's all about the medical ID.
Yeah.
The biometric ID.
That's where they're headed with it. The totalitarian...
For all of the systems, for all of the technocratic systems, and that will be your, like your lifetime identification for everything about you. And if they, once they have that, if they turn it off, you're dead man. You're outside of the system. You're as good as dead.
Jeffrey Tucker wrote in the American Institute for Economic Research a piece called "Madness in Melbourne," where he talks about the absolute police state that has developed in Australia. He said, a friend summarized the situation for me. Now listen to this. Police may now enter anyone's home without a warrant. A curfew has been imposed at 8 p.m. There is a $1,652 fine if outside without a, quote, valid reason, an amount being raised by the day. Can't visit any family or friends. A $200 fine for no mask. Mandatory masks at all times. You can only exercise once per day for up to 1 hour. Only one person per household per day can leave the house, including for groceries. You can't go more than 3 miles from your home. Weddings are illegal. No gatherings of any size. Army is on the streets fighting/arresting people. Since March 21st, a total of 193,740 spot checks have been conducted by police across Victoria. Protests/activism is illegal. People have already been arrested for peaceful gatherings. The media is extremely biased, of course, calls protesters right-wing conspiracy nut jobs, and won't allow discussion of whether these lockdowns are right or not. Several thousand people were placed under house arrest and unable to leave for any reason, with food rations delivered by the Army, leading to appalling levels of personal trauma. Australia won't release how many fines they've given out, but an ABC, and that's the Australian ABC, ABC News report says it's over 5.2 million in fines so far. Streets of Melbourne are empty, even in a city of 5 million plus people. People are hateful to each other. Everyone is cannibalizing their neighbors, calling police to report any little infraction of the rules and turning on each other like some socialist hellhole. Billboards outside on the street that say in capital letters, "What are you doing? Stay home." They feel extremely...
You know what? I'd have to go. I'd have to just go outside and look for somebody that has COVID. Who has COVID? Give it to me. I want it. You know, I don't want to live in a society like this.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure suicides are probably on the rise. They don't say that here, but, I mean, certainly that happened anytime these lockdowns have been imposed. Their Victorian Premier, Daniel Andrews, shows complete and utter disdain for us, this person says, constantly blaming us. He's blamed children, yes, really, children, for not taking this seriously enough. Every chance he gets, he tells us it's our fault the virus is spreading, even though that's what viruses do, they spread. And that's assuming there even is a virus at this point. It's not just the Victorian Premier. The Australian Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, is just as terrible. He's encouraged all of us, and he was responsible for the first lockdown. 1984, dystopian language on the billboards everywhere saying, "Staying apart keeps us together." There's probably
never give up your guns. Never.
There's probably more. He says, at this point, I honestly lost track of all the insanity that's happened. And this is all because 147 people died in the state of Victoria. Total population's over almost 6.5 million. Almost all the deaths are over 70 with comorbidities, same as everywhere else in the world. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And here's an anchor on Sky News Australia. The name is Andrew Bolt. The Australian media apparently better than is in the United States, at least in some cases. But they're talking about the current situation in Victoria.
Victoria was today virtually shut down to fight the coronavirus. 250,000 more workers in Victoria will this week lose their jobs on top of the other 250,000 who've already just lost theirs.
From 11:59 p.m. this Wednesday, retail will close, some manufacturing will close, some admin will close.
Even Bunnings closed except for click and collect. You can't go in the store. Abattoirs are even going to be cut back. Workers must now work in full PPE gear, which means we're now going to see in Victoria a form of rationing of meat in peacetime.
There'll be enough for people to get what they need. Not necessarily what they want, but get what they need. I can't guarantee that everybody will get every product they want in the quantities they'd want.
Doesn't that sound like sustainable development, by the way?
Well, yes. It's all part of it. It's all part. All of these systems are all interconnected. They're designed to work together.
Yep.
And you know what really upsets me is that these news people are reading this as if it's all serious and normal and natural, just a little bit out of the ordinary, that now we have to ration meat. Really, Australia exports a lot of beef to the United States. Maybe they should just stop exporting here and feed themselves, because we can feed ourselves with our beef.
That would be our nation first. It goes right against everything the UN and all the globalists want.
Yeah, you're right.
They want to put the world first.
Yeah, that's why they designed the global economy the way that they did. Export your production and import your consumption. That way they can cut you off in a heartbeat if they want to.
I'll tell you what, I got a lot of these, I got a few more of these clips, and I haven't even made it halfway through that first one. So I'm going to push the rest of that off until next week, because I'm sure it's still something that will be going on next week.
Yeah, but that is a good point, though. Everybody watch what's going on in Australia, because it's the same thing here.
Yeah.
And you can see the global systems. You'll hear the same thing over there as is happening here. If you watch the UK, same thing. They might be a little bit ahead of us, but same thing.
Yeah, and to your point about not letting go of the guns, both parties tried to slip in gun control, and the latest so-called stimulus, monetary push. So that's something, you know, I think we did mention that on the show previously, but it's something to keep an eye on. Ultimately,
Absolutely.
They pulled it out, but they could put it right back again, too. So they're slimy little rascals, that's for sure. Anyway, we got to go. Thank you for being with us, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry to depress you.
3 hours.
Yeah, fastest 3 hours in talk radio. Join us back here next week. Same time, same outlet. In the meantime, pray for this republic. Do what you can to restore it. And by the way, for those listening to our stream, immediately after we're completely done here, we will be playing Millie's full documentary for those that want to listen to it. And if you want to watch it, I'll have the links in the show notes for today's broadcast. God bless you, folks. Pray for this republic. Do what you can to restore it. Thanks, Vicky.
Thank you, Darren.
And we'll talk to you folks later.